welcome to Great Shot. This is the Great Shot Podcast, a Cracked Racquets and Tennis Channel Podcast Network production. My name is Alex Gruskin. On today's show, we've got another edition of The Deciding Point for all of you listeners, our weekly breakdown of all of the action that happens across the Division I college tennis world. Of course, this week's show particularly special as we've reached the final week of the 2022 college tennis seasons. All of our remaining 8 teams have now officially descended upon Champaign for the start of practices at the 2022 final NCAA site. Of course, just 30 minutes ago, we completed our show previewing the men's quarterfinals live here on our Cracked Racquets YouTube channel. You'll all be able to hear that podcast on the Great Shot podcast feed. Believe it will come out on Wednesday. But of course, that's just one half of the action. And this year, it's the men who begin our play in Champaign. They begin on Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. For the women, they're the Friday start. They're the ones who are going to have to play 3 days in a row this year. Those quarterfinals beginning Friday, I believe at 4 p.m. Might be incorrect. Have to check the start time there, but I believe I'm correct there. Give me a wink, Jay, if I am right on that note. Oh, I appreciate that fact. And then, of course, similar schedule, just again, as Thursday, Friday start, though, for those women's quarterfinal matches. Of course, as we've said all season, who's going to win the 2022 NCAA women's title? Your guess as good as ours. And, you know, much like the men, things stuck to script during our super regional Sweet 16 round of play of the NCAA tournament. All 8 of our top 8 seeds advanced to the quarterfinals. As such, 4-3, the expectations moving forward here at the 2022 NCAA tournament. And of course, on today's show, what we want to do is help preview all of the remaining action here in the college tennis season. Of course, how will we do that? By recapping last weekend's super regional action. We'll talk about the teams who impressed the most, offer our immediate eulogies for some of the teams whose season are now officially in the books. And then we'll get to previewing our 4 spectacular quarterfinal matches. We'll talk about the match calculus, talk about the inflection point matches, the most intriguing matchups, and so much more. It's another jam-packed podcast for all of you listeners here today, and appreciate all of you who are joining us live for our episode here of The Deciding Point. It's been so fun to go at 9 p.m. Eastern time here just about every Tuesday of this college tennis season, from Scotty B to the rest of the crew joining us. Appreciate all of you who have taken the time, and I said this at the start of our men's podcast sincerely. We would not be able to do these shows week in, week out. We wouldn't have the reception. We wouldn't be able to secure sponsors. We wouldn't be able to keep doing what we do without the amazing support and reception we've gotten from all of you in the college tennis universe, whether it be coaches, players, fans. We're so grateful for that fact here at Cracked Racquets. So again, on behalf of all of us, thank you for your continued reasoning, your continued willingness to tune in to us here at Cracked Racquets. Of course, with all that said, if it's a jam-packed podcast, you know I'm going to have some help to help me get through all of the information. And joining us once again here on tonight's show, as he has each and every week here on our episodes of The Deciding Point, is a returning champion here on our Cracked Racquets shows, your co-favorite writer for our website, crackedrackets.com. And in that spirit, be on the lookout for his NCAA quarterfinal previews coming up over the next few days. A man you also know as the founder of the No Ad, No Problem blog, our West Coast correspondent who's making the trip, press credentialed now to Champaign. It's our friend, John J. Parsons. Jay, hey, great shot. Our mistake is now official. Welcome to the crew. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in Champaign in a couple of days.
I'm excited. We've come a long way in a year.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm looking forward to it. You know, we've been doing this now the entire college tennis season, which has been fantastic. And it's only now in our final episode that I am finding out that I have been doing this with the college tennis mind of a generation, folks. The college tennis mind of a generation. It's been an honor. I didn't know until the end, but self-proclaimed, I should add. So, folks, if you're missing out and you're not listening to the Cracked Interviews podcast, you get tidbits like that. Your very own mind of a college tennis generation.
Well, that's good. Now you've proclaimed it as well. So it's no longer just self, you know, because you didn't qualify that at first. No, I appreciate you saying that. I should have introduced you as the Robin to my Batman, given Mark Weaver's comments. That would have fit now. But Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. Obviously, again, I'm thrilled and well-deserved press pass for you at the NCAA tournament. I cannot wait for you to say, again, John Parsons cracked rackets. There will be at least one coach who goes, "You're John Parsons," and will go, "Oh," and I cannot wait for that to just happen and be there in that moment. But again, our cracked rackets coverage does not happen this season without you. And to those who may not be familiar, it was probably 18 months ago, maybe, when we were tweeting out what are some of the things we can do better in college tennis moving forward. And something you said was, I would really appreciate if you guys would be able to increase your women's tennis coverage. We have really attempted to do that this season, and I need to be crystal clear that would not have been possible without you, Jay, because your willingness to do this week in, week out with me, to push back against me when I'm being an idiot, it just makes our coverage significantly better. And so hopefully we have lived up to my promise to you and improved and increased our coverage. But a massive thank you to you, my friend. I hope you know you're appreciated.
I feel it.
Okay, good. That's all I ever asked for. Well, again, with all of that said, we're going to get into our Sweet 16 takeaways. We're going to talk about our quarterfinal previews as well. Before we do any of that, got to give a shout out to the people who make these podcasts possible. Of course, those are our friends over at SwingVision and Turna. And look, I mean, again, SwingVision at the forefront of everything happening artificial intelligence in the sport of tennis. Simply put, the days of the volunteer assistant, your jobs are going to get much easier. All you have to do is convince your coach to download the SwingVision app. Then just don't teach them how to use it, because with the SwingVision app, it's going to break down all of your film for you. You're going to have the misses, the makes, where your players can improve, various aspects of the film, all in the palm of your hand. And again, to have access to thousands of players' data and to be have access to all the SwingVision content. Trust me, it's worth the investment. You can learn more about SwingVision by clicking on the link in the description to this podcast. Use the promo code CRACK20. You'll get a $20 discount plus a 14-day pro trial. Of course, a shout out to the OGs as well, our friends at Turna, not only supporting this podcast since the beginning, but of course supporting tennis players everywhere with their Turna grip. But it's not just the grip, folks. Of course, with Turna, they've got string, they've got so much more. You can join the Turna family today by contacting sales@uniquesports.com. You mentioned we sent you, the hook you up with free samples, hook you up with discounted pricing, treat you like family. Again, we are so grateful for Turna's support. The least we can do, ask you to support them as well. Email them today by contacting sales@uniquesports.com. With all of that said, Jay, let's get into our NCAA Sweet 16 recap. And again, it was a super regional format. That means the top 8 seeds all hosted home matches this weekend. Let's start on the tennis side, because obviously I want your takeaways from the super regional Sweet 16 format. Would love to hear your takeaways from our Sweet 16 press row as well. But I think the place we have to start here, you know, they're not, we talk about the wide open nature. We talk about the parity we've seen in women's college tennis all season long. Have we now reached the part of the season? Have we now reached the point where are Pepperdine and Texas now the favorites once again to capture the NCAA tournament? And I want to start with the Pepperdine Waves. 4-0 victory over Miami. That match was over in 2 hours. That wasn't just a dominant 4-0 victory. That was a blowout. And you look for the Waves, who continue to thrive in particular places. 6-2 at the number 2 spot. Brodus and Chen have lost 1 match all season long. Then a 6-3 win from Fukuda and Pachkaleva. Again, you look for this Pepperdine team throughout the course of the season, even though it's been different pairings. They are 16-8 at that number 3 spot. But perhaps most pressingly is once again for the Pepperdine Waves. 6 first sets in singles. They didn't know how best to arrange the chess pieces coming into the NCAA tournament. And they're all season long, I should say. And they played around with those pieces all season long. But all of the chess pieces do seem to finally be in the right position. And I mean, Jay, the most dangerous possible thing, the thing we waxed poetically about in one of our more embarrassing preseason podcasts, where we talked about the upside of this Pepperdine team. We were a little early, but if this is the Pepperdine we see show up in Champaign, I know I don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse, but aren't they the favorites? Like, this is it. This is the team.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny. We do this all season long, and then you basically can throw out so much stuff that we learned in February and March and April. And here we are in May, and Pepperdine finally is starting to look like that team we thought they might be all season long. And that's scary, right? They've Doubles has been actually okay for them all season, continues to look fine. And each of those six singles players are seemingly playing their best tennis this season, right? We've talked about Pachkaleva and Flores needing to round into form. Well, guess what? Like, they look good. They're winning matches or they're up in their matches. Savannah Brodus is hardly losing games in some of these matches. I mean, wildly impressive. So, and Janice Chen as well. She's ascended to that top spot, no problem. So it's tough to say. I mean, I think they're probably the favorite on form right now, but ultimately we're talking about three matches.
Yeah.
Probably don't want to get too excited, but I will say at prior to the NCAA tournament last year, they were in the conversation. They were not necessarily your one or two. And they have a way to turn it on here at the end of the season.
To your point about the draw, perspective, UNC, Texas, whoever comes out of that other half, whoever the best team is, that's as tough as it gets. And guess what? They're the number 8 seed. And that's what comes with the struggles and putting the chess pieces together all season long. But yep. I was talking with Adam Schachterly. He says Savannah Brodus, he thinks she could win the NCAA singles tournament. That's how well she's playing right now. And to beat an Audrey Bach-Collins, who was playing exceptional tennis for Miami,
yes,
1-0, a 1-0 victory for the freshman. I mean, Brodus has won 10 in a row. She's 19-5 overall in the dual match season as a freshman. To have her at 5 when she might be as good as Connie Ma and Yepifanova, the best freshman in the country, right up there with the Chantas and the Stakers and everyone, you feel good with Brodus at that 5 spot. To your point, Janice Chen now up to the number 1 spot. She's lost one dual match all season long, but she's up 5-2 on Richardson. Fukuda has refound her form, 1-1 at the 2 spot. And at the national indoors, when this Pepperdine team struggled, the one position they didn't was Shiori Fukuda at 1. Now you have her at 2. She delivers a 1-1 win. Czar and Fenning was never going to finish. And all that, again, that it went to a tiebreak was as scripted because Fenning was one Miami had to have. Czar takes that first set 7-6. That's the knife in the side. I mean, if Taya Pachkaleva is winning, it's just a win for this Pepperdine team. But that she won 6-0, just icing on top of the cake. Flores is up a set, even if she's down a break in the second. But at that point, it didn't matter because your team takes all 6 first sets. This is the version of Pepperdine we hypothesized could exist. And this is their best match. Like, this is their best win of the season. And, talking to Pear on the Correct Interviews podcast, I asked him, have you played your best match yet? He said, no, I don't think we have. I agreed with him. That is the theory I postulated towards him. And he said, to his credit, he agreed. Well, this is it. And now they need to do it again. And much like last year, they need to do it at least 3 times because they did it today. They need to do it against UNC. They will probably have to do it in their semifinal. In the NCAA final, anything can happen.
Yeah.
But man, are they now, like, if it was we joked about it, have they fallen out of tier 1? No longer. And to your point, on form alone, this team is playing as well as anyone right now.
Yeah, absolutely. But they don't do themselves any favor with the draw, right? So we talk about like throwing out some of the form from earlier this season, but that dictates the draw, right? And it feels very similar to what we saw last season, right? Where Pepperdine had to go through UCLA, North Carolina, and then face a Texas team who had a much easier path to the final. It does feel like whoever comes out of this top half of the draw is really going to be bruised. Remember, the women have to go 3 straight days this year.
Yeah.
So look, this Pepperdine team on form can absolutely do it. It's not going to be easy.
Quickly on Miami, everyone's back but Richardson, but don't worry, we bring in Alexa Noel. Holy crap, can this team be good next year? And would they have loved to have gone to the final site? Absolutely. This is a great experience for them. I mean, again, it sucks because the ACC, and we'll get to them, is the ACC better this year than it was last year? Maybe. Is it going to be the same next year? Probably. But man, is this Miami just ran into a buzzsaw would be my final take on them. We can get to them in a second more when we talk about the ACC. Let's move on to the other half of this equation, which is Texas. We said if Auburn's going to beat Texas, they have to take the doubles point. They were, 19-7 or something like that coming into the match in the doubles point, or maybe 21-7. Ultimately for Auburn, they do what they have to do. They take the doubles point. They get wins at the 2 and 3 position. But again, for this Texas team, They take 5 of 6 first sets and just in a position to win on 5 of those 6 courts as well. Now, credit to Ariana Arsenault, who is as good of a number 2 singles player as any player in the country. And man, would Georgia have liked to have had her back this season with some of the things they went through down the home stretch. But I mean, again, if we 4-1 scoreline sounds like a blowout, Auburn gave the effort they needed to give at the start of the match. That's just how good this Texas team was in singles. And, they're playing as well as any team in the country. It's like similar to Pepperdine, where they can find 6 anywhere.
Yep. Yeah, this Texas team right now, based on form, reminds me of Florida from last season, where the only points they're losing are doubles.
Yeah, the Florida men's team.
Florida men. Yep, exactly. And then they come out super hot in singles, and they're not dropping a singles point.
Yeah.
Look, this team has had a little more longevity in terms of how hot they've been than Pepperdine, right? We really saw that come on in the Big 12 tournament.
Yeah, and they're 23-4, and who are the losses to? Oklahoma twice, Stanford, and I'm forgetting one more.
NC State.
Yeah, then okay.
Yep. Yeah. And that Stanford, NC State, and the indoors.
Stanford's the only bad one where you're like, that was weird.
Yeah, that was at Stanford, but that was a while ago.
No,
too,
not
right?
a bad loss, but I should say that's the only even like somewhat questionable one. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go on.
No, and so where they are now, I think listening to Coach Joffe, it sounds like they've kind of gotten a lot of the pieces together, right? And it sounds like he feels really strongly and confident in Shavothapan. We've talked about that being such an inflection point for them in terms of getting that 4th point, or number 4, I should say. So they have a very clear calculus. Doubles 1, 3, and 4. And if they don't get doubles, it hasn't hurt them at all. So that'll be fascinating. But I mean, they're dominating singles in ways that other teams are not.
Shavothapan may be 16-8 overall, 7-2 in her last 10, 13-3 now back at that number 4 spot. Stearns has won 14 in a row, and Zainalova 20-1 overall in the season. And again, Collins isn't bad at 13-6, with Rutsky 12-5. There's no weak point in their lineup now. 43-20 in doubles, winning 18-3 at the number 2 spot. They feel pretty good there. Obviously, with how well Stearns is playing, her and Zemaripa, you feel good about at 1. They're vulnerable in doubles, but they're so deep in singles. They're the sort of team that, because of how good Stearns is at 1, you feel like, okay, we're down a doubles point, but it's actually 1-all because we're up 1-0 going into the match, and we feel like we can find 3 of the last 5 is the calculus for them. I mean, they're playing extraordinarily well. And again, and to your point about Coach Joffe on the Cracked Interviews podcast, didn't he sound confident? Didn't he sound pretty damn confident in how well his team, Shavothapan in particular, but I just feel like he thinks he sees it with this group.
Yeah, he sounded more confident on this interview than he did last year.
Yeah.
Last year, there were a lot of unknown, 5 freshmen. He was very candid about, I have no idea what's going to happen here. He seemed more confident, I would agree.
And on the flip side, again, Auburn, just about everyone's back. I mean, Axon played extraordinary, for Axon to lose to Shavothapan, but they got the doubles point, and Axon gets the win there. What a great leader she was. Yu-Chen had a great season. Don't let this match cloud what was clearly a year of growth for Coach Lilly and the team. And boy, that Coach Lilly interview, one of my favorites, I'm sure. Again, did you enjoy that one? I have to do it here, folks. Sorry.
Talk about someone who's prepared for every answer.
No,
and doesn't
even
skip a beat. Some people will have to really think about it. Didn't even have to skip a beat. No, look, I mean, this has been an incredible season for Auburn. They returned that top 3, especially 2 and 3, who won them a lot of matches this year. Look, there's no reason this Auburn team can't begin to be at the top of the SEC year in, year out.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. With that in mind, let's move on to our next team, Oklahoma, who will be without Chanta for the remainder of the NCAA tournament. But shout out to her, who gets the victory with Team Thailand over in the Southeast Asia Games. That said, in front of a ruckus Sooner crowd, Oklahoma 4-1 victory over Stanford. And in the end, we don't see Michaela Gordon in singles, but she did play doubles, and it did matter. 6-2 victory for Guzman and Staker at 3, then the 7-5 win for Sleeth and Pisareva at the number 2 spot. You look perhaps most impressively, again, for this Oklahoma team, they won 5 first sets in singles, and the one first set they didn't win is a point they're still going to feel pretty good about in Emma Staker, who drops a 5-0 match to Sarah Choi, but, after dropping that first set, it looked like the rest of her team had things under control. That said, massive victory for Guzman. freshman, for her to just get on the board over India Houghton. And then, for the Corley sisters, Ivana Corley struggled outdoors throughout the course of the Big 12 season. And she gets a straight set win over Angelica Blake, who had lost fewer than 5 matches on the year. Oklahoma's a team who enjoyed the super regional format more than anything because, boy, did they have a home crowd advantage. But they made the most of it. And again, this team has just seen everything that can be thrown at a team throughout the course of this year. They are the most calloused group entering this 2022 NCAA final tournament stretch. They're thriving. They look just fine, Jay.
But yeah, they look more than fine. I think Coach Cohen is the only top 8 coach who prefers the super regional, or said she prefers it on the women's side.
Okay. Take your word for it.
Yeah, I
believe making... Coach Calbus said, "Ask me if we win."
Okay. Well, okay. That's a punt. But everyone else who went on the record. So, I mean, and you totally saw why, right? I mean, the crowd was rowdy. It was loud. It was enthusiastic. It was engaged. That was a really fun match, I thought. And what was most impressive for me was Ivana Corley. Won in doubles. They were down big at number 1 doubles. They stayed alive to keep the pressure on. She played lights out in singles. I mean, we talk a lot about serve +1, or maybe you talk about serve +1. Ivana Corley has the return +1. I mean, she was teeing off on Angelica Blake's second serve, coming into net and putting away volleys. That was a pretty incredible showing from her, who, again, Blake has been playing excellent. Also, a sort of player who can take the racket out of your hand. Both the Corley sisters, I thought, really stepped up in this match against Stanford. For Carmen to get the win over Yepifanova, just really impressive. Look, I know it's tough to be without Shanta, but you're right. They look great.
No, what's the more impressive Corley victory, Yepifanova or Blake? Like, it's tough to say. Again, they turned it on in front of this home crowd, and credit to Coach Cohen, who had this home crowd again, rocking and rolling, creating the sort of environment you need when you're taking on a team as perennially successful as this Stanford group is. But I mean, yeah, this Oklahoma team, again, they've still got the depth, and that they earned the 4-1 victory and their loss was Staker. Like, I think that's about, again, if you're Coach Cohen in the group, yeah, you face the hottest team in the country in A&M, who hasn't lost since February, and they've got experience as well. Oh my God, is that match going to be good? And I promise we will get to previewing that match momentarily. Let's move on, though, with some of our takeaways. Let's talk about the ACC, because obviously NC State advances, Duke advances, UNC advances to our quarterfinal round. And don't worry, I didn't forget about Virginia, Jay. I just like to make sure you're awake here while I'm doing this. Half the quarterfinal field, half of it is ACC teams. You look last year, UNC, NC State, Duke, all into the quarterfinals. Am I missing one from the
Florida
group?
State?
Yeah, they made the quarterfinals as well. You're right, beating Texas A&M. Back-to-back years, half of our quarterfinals are from the ACC. I swear to God, the conference was better this season. And again, you look at the matchups. Duke's the 3 seed against, NC State versus Duke. You're guaranteed an ACC team into the semifinals once again. UNC Pepperdine, I don't know if there's a favorite. Virginia gets to that next step, gets to that quarterfinal with this group. And I mean, we talk about Texas feeling like they're up 1-0. Well, guess what? They got to run against the Navarro train now. Yep. And like, oh my God, I guess more broadly, and this is my question here, Miami obviously looked really good last weekend as well. There are ACC teams everywhere, or it looked good throughout the course of the season. There are ACC teams everywhere. I mean, was the conference better this season? Like, it really does feel like it was. This conference is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, just look at the seeds: 1, 3, 5, 6. I think
deservedly so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the difference this year is that there feels like there's more national title contenders in the conversation, right? Like those handful, and that could also be because this is just feels a more open year. But last year, at least within the ACC, it was North Carolina at tier 1, and then all these other teams who were top 10 teams, yes, but not at that level. And so I think they've all made a step to be that tier 1 contender. There were a lot of middle of the pack teams last year in the ACC that were still super strong. You look at Georgia Tech, they made the round of 16 last year as well. Same thing here. I think Miami making the push into the top 10. it's tough to say if it's better. I feel like there's an ascension towards the top, whether that means teams are moving from like 40 to 30, right? In terms of like a Notre Dame. But it's hard not to get better when you have to play week in, week out against 5, 6 top 10 teams.
Yeah, no, and I mean, again, to talk about the other ACC teams, Duke got back to their winning ways, and again, take the doubles point against Georgia, and for Chloe Beck to take away one of Georgia's strengths, even though Georgia's without Leah Ma, obviously, and they're shorthanded compared to what we thought at the start of the season. Back a 3-5 victory over Riasco. She had struggled a bit since making that shift to the number 1 spot. She gets back on track. Drummy, a 3-set victory over Viedmanova at that number 2 spot. And then, again, Kelly Chen, Meg Kowalski, both of them in their last NCAA tournament. That match was always going to be 3 sets. It was always going to be a struggle. I mean, credit to Anya Hurdle, who came out great, a 1-3 victory over Billiken. And I do think long-term that number 5 spot, if you're going to beat Duke, you probably have to beat Billiken. But look, it's always, okay, we know 2 of the 3, Chen, Drummy, back. At our best, we're going to win 2 of those 3 matches always. That's the best case scenario for Duke. We need one more. That it's been one of the freshmen in this NCAA tournament and successful ACC run. And in this case, it's Emma Jackson, who continues to play better and better at that number 3 spot. 0-5 win for her over the veteran in Kopic. I mean, Duke is thriving right now. Like, they have a pretty clear match calculus. 2 of the veterans in Chen, Beck, Drummy take doubles, find one more.
Yeah. I thought Georgia put up a really good fight in that match.
Yeah.
And Duke was able to weather that storm. But
I mean,
overall,
4 first sets in singles was what they needed.
Yep. Yeah. And I do think you're right. I think, look, that's tough top 2, right? Beck and Drummy against anybody. Chen at 4, if we see Kelly Chen in May, that's a tough out for anybody. I mean, she'll go to the hospital before she'll lose.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Duke is playing well. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they match up with NC State. But overall, I thought tough to know what the obituary is on Georgia, right? I mean, they're losing some veterans. They have a lot of young players. I think you feel really confident with Riasco and Viedmanova. They have a few freshmen coming in who are stellar. Probably don't worry too much about Georgia.
Nurendorn played well down the home stretch. There's definitely a foundation there for Georgia.
Agreed.
I want to talk about them momentarily, but then lastly, Virginia. I mean, really good doubles point, and it wasn't Navarro and Shake, the number 3 team in the country. It was Travinsky and Subash 6-1 at 2, and then again Munir and Odell 6-3 at 3 over a very good Oklahoma State team. And then again that we get Navarro Stearns. What a blessing from the gods. Navarro continues to do her thing, 1-1 over Ryu. Like, are you kidding me? That's a blowout victory. And then look, Oklahoma State's good everywhere. They put up a fight. They extended 3 matches to 3 sets and earned a straight set victory at the number 4 spot from Orpana. Credit to Swanka. You're facing, a veteran on the road in Subash. You extend that match to 3 sets. Now, credit to the freshman Travinsky, up 4-1 in the third on Zarolo when the match is finished. But, again, Navarro, Ziadato at 6, and Heba Sheikh at 5. Like, depth is not supposed to be where Virginia's getting their victories. And you look for Sheikh, you look for Ziadato, who at this point of the season have improved. Ziadato 18-7 overall, but 8-1 in her last 10. And, Sheikh 7-2 in her last 10, 19-5 overall on the season. They're proving that depth is real. Again, to beat this Oklahoma State team 4-1, it was closer than a 4-1 scoreboard would indicate. But to beat them with depth, that is a noticeable sign from this Virginia team heading into the quarterfinals.
Yeah, this was definitely one of the closer matches of the weekend.
It was a blowout weekend. It was, we haven't said that yet. Again, nothing closer than 4-1 on the women's side. This was probably the closest match.
Yeah, I have some stats for you on the super regional versus not, but we can save those.
Hold that for the end of this because I do want to hear all of them.
And so I thought Oklahoma State looked a little flat in doubles and came out really strong in singles. It moved indoors. I thought that started to favor players like Subash and Travinsky. But yeah, look, I mean, Heba Sheikh at 5, Sarah Ziodato at 6 is one of the reasons Virginia is here in the quarterfinals. Yeah. Because early in the season, you knew what you were getting from Navarro. You knew Subash at 2. You were kind of like, okay, Travinsky looks solid here at 3. I don't know where we're going to get, the remainder of the points, which was kind of the knock on them last season as well. Really strong top three, and it fell off a little bit. So overall, to show that they had the depth to match Oklahoma State, who's gone in, week out against the depth of a Texas or an Oklahoma, was a really promising sign for Virginia.
Uvrutsky, Zemaripa, and Sheikh Ziadato is a toss-up at 5'6". Like, it is not a runaway for Texas. And with Navarro Stearns, where that is as well. I mean, man, are those matchups going to be freaking good. I may have mixed some of the matchups up even for 5 and 6, but the point, you get what I'm saying more broadly. Again, the depth, yeah. Virginia's got it to match up with Texas, and they've got that. Man, is that match good. Yeah. All right. Beyond that, again, the other the other ACC team we've yet to talk about, NC State, who just kind of quietly, very quietly, 4-0 victory over Cal, and as they always do, doubles point. Daniel Miller at number 1, Nugroho Abrams at that number 3 spot. Now, they were down 5-2 at 2, but, I mean, you look for this team. Priska Nugroho continues her exceptional freshman season, 7-6, 6-1 victory at that number 3 spot. Nugroho now overall in the year up to, I believe, and I don't want to get this incorrect, 20-6 overall, 7-1 in her last 10. Then it was the depth. Rajecki, 0-1 at the 5 spot. Abrams, 2-1 at the 6 spot. That's probably most notable because, they're 21-6 and 5 at 5 overall on the season. They've always been good at that spot. But, if Abrams, who's 20-6 overall in dual match play, but down to that number 6 single spot, if she's going to put together 2-1 victories, I mean, again, for this team, doubles, 5. First of all, doubles, find 3 more has always been the recipe, but they take 4 first sets against this Cal team, 3 straight set victories to put them away 4-0. This was a pretty dominant performance from the Wolfpack at home.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Pepperdine and Texas up top, but a team that has looked very good as well is NC State. I think it's exacerbated a little bit by the fact that they didn't have as strong of a home stretch of the season, right? When they lost to Virginia, to UNC, to Duke, to Virginia again, it wasn't the NC State that was knocking off these victories week in, week out that we saw earlier in the season. They have looked really strong in this tournament, knocking off Tennessee, who was in form, making it not competitive at all at 5 and 6 against Cal, who's strong everywhere, right? I thought this was a really impressive performance from NC State.
Yeah, they've bounced back after their end of April struggles. They, again, to beat Tennessee in the fashion that they did and to blow out Cal 4-0, I mean, to defend their home courts, that's just what you would expect from a team that, again, is coming off of an NCAA semifinal, and Rincelli and Daniel and Rajecki, they were all a part of that group. And Nugroho, top 20 junior in the world, she's proven the pedigree is real. She's been as good as any freshman in the country. Yeah, this NC State team is clicking on all cylinders. And I think to your point, last year, NC State getting to the semifinals, that was their ceiling. That was the victory. Certainly, we all thought North Carolina could have won the NCAA title, but this year you could make the case for North Carolina, for Duke, for Virginia, for NC State. No one's laughing you out of the room. 4 national championship contenders, 4 quarterfinalists, again, the ACC, just on another level. This headline is going to say, what is Auburn's ceiling moving forward? But I want to talk about the eulogies in general moving forward. Let's start with Auburn. Axon's gone. Chen's gone. That said, Ovunk, Arsenault, and Sorry, and I'm missing one. I'm sorry. Flack to bring back that nucleus. I mean, let's start there. Auburn, where are they? Are they top 10 next season right now for you? Or do you see like a team like Michigan passing? Like, again, it's interesting where this group is. Like, to me, I don't know if they're ready to be firmly in the top 10 threshold.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, right? I mean, they're losing those contributors who provide a lot of depth. They are returning their top 3, but they don't finish the year in the top 10. So it's tough to say that they'll be in the top 10 firmly. I think what will be key is the success of the freshmen in the fall. I think will tell us a lot about if they're able to fill in some of those gaps at 4, 5, 6. But as I said earlier, I think this Auburn team has the recipe to continue to compete at this level within the SEC.
Oklahoma State, no more Zarolo, unsure about LMR. Plus some additions as well. Lisa Marie Rio.
Oh, I was like, who's LMR? Yeah. I guess so that's what she's called. Well, I mean, look, Sawanka looks incredible. So you can build a team around
The
her.
nucleus of their team, 2 through 5, I'll take them all.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I have no doubt that this team will continue to take steps forward to be a legit contender in 2024 when they play the NCAAs at Oklahoma State. So
That's when they have to be peaking by, and I agree. I
exactly.
think they're on the course, is what I would say. Is
Agreed.
like right now, is a national championship in 2024 out of the picture? No, because if Sawanka's the best player on your roster in 2024, you like that as your start. I agree with you. I mean, again, we can rapid fire through. I think we already did the Miami takeaway. Cal, that was a disappointing ending, certainly, but again, this was the hot and cold season for this group, and I would have loved to see them in the final sight. This is a group that I think next year's catching no one by surprise.
Yeah, not catching anyone by surprise. I mean, last season was a little hot and cold too, but I attributed that more to starting the semester probably a little bit later, given some of the COVID protocols. Came on strong, right? I thought they played UNC tough in the round of 16, and they obviously won the Pac-12 championships. But yeah, I mean, this is still a young roster, bringing back the nucleus. I mean, just like all solo at 2, Weirsham at 3 or 4, like those are going to be excellent players over the years.
Yeah, we talked about Georgia as well. Let's move to another takeaway. No Big Ten, no Pac-12 in the finals site. And, that's the first time in a generation, it feels like that has happened. And certainly, again, you look for the no Big Ten, no Pac-12, Stanford, the team that makes it furthest. I mean, we just talked about Cal, but Stanford, the other team that makes it to this round. I mean, if Yepifanova, Ma, and Shu are back, like, all right, we roll. I feel like it's pretty good for the Stanford team outlook moving forward. Obviously, they're going to bring in a nice recruiting class as well.
Yep.
I think Stanford gets right back on top next. They're right back in the championship mix next season.
Yeah, I think so. And they bring back Blake as well, right?
Yeah.
So those are 4 players. They bring in Blakina, who's top 3 recruit in her class, top 5. She's excellent. Look, they're going to be very talented again. I think this is a good experience building year for those 3 freshmen that you talked about. No concerns.
A rare experience year, but a good experiencing year, certainly. With that in mind, again, super regional takeaways, Jay, as we look big picture here, and you got the chance to listen to a bunch of those Sweet 16 interviews. Would love to hear you mix in any thoughts you have from them here as well. But as you look at your super regional, your stats, your takeaways from the home crowds, give me your final thoughts on last weekend's action.
Yeah, so you're someone who, you've talked about loving the data, wanting to see the data. We're only 2 years in. Let's get the data. So I have some data for you. And we're comparing the 2 years of super regionals to 2018 and 2021. So kind of the year sandwich in between. Few things to note. We see in terms of 4-3 matches, we had 1 4-3 match using the super regional format. In the Sweet 16, we had 4 using the final site. 4-0 matches, we see 8 when we use the super regional format versus 6 for neutral site. So overall, less 3-4s, more 4-0s, decreases parity writ large.
It's a 2-year sample size, let's be clear, but keep going, right?
2-year sample size. Here's what's not a 2-year sample size.
There we go. Now we're talking.
The number of top 8 seeds who have failed to advance to the quarterfinals has been more than 0 every year since 2012, with the exception of our 2 super regional years where it was completely chalk, all top 8 seeds making the quarterfinals.
And this is just the women's side, to clarify.
This is just the women's.
Okay, keep going.
That's all I have.
I like it.
That's all I have.
I'm embarrassed. Texas A&M 4-0 victory over Vanderbilt. By the way, A&M continuing to just rock and roll the way that I'll get to A&M and UNC in a second, I promise. But don't just think we haven't forgotten about them. So is the trade-off worthwhile? Because you saw the Oklahoma crowd. So that's part 2 of the assessment, right? Yes. And I don't want to cloud it with judgment. I'm just curious where you are, because I know you value both of these things equally.
Yeah,
well, maybe not equally, but you value both of these things.
Totally. And this is not to say with these stats, we need to be using the final site. It's just to say there are trade-offs, right? And one of the very clear trade-offs is attendance versus parity. You are going to favor the top 8 seeds with this format, but you are going to bring out more fans when you add up all the fans who attend those super regionals than you would at a single site. And so I think that's one of the trade-offs.
May
It
I
was
ask, 2 years in, which way you lean?
I understand the logistical concern of 32 teams versus 16 teams at the final site. I think that is very valid. I also am, maybe part of Coach Faroud's school of thought is like find a site that can host it, right? I think I agree on a few things. I think one, I also lean towards having an Omaha for college tennis. I think
Which means
that
a final site that we turn to every year, a la softball and baseball, for those unfamiliar with that Omaha vernacular.
exactly. I think that makes a lot of sense. It seems like based on your interviews, coaches were supportive of that idea as well. I'll be honest, I think this super regional format draws out the tournament too long. This weekend didn't feel as exciting to me as it has with the Sweet 16 format. I would, if we're going to try and spread it out, I would maybe consider 8 regionals, right, with 8 teams or something of that nature. But this weekend felt a little bit more like the conference championship weekend where everything is a little disaggregated. You're like following over here, scores over here. Didn't feel cohesive. So that's where my thoughts are. I can see the argument both ways. Personally, huge fan of the Sweet 16 at the final site, dual gender.
Fair. I enjoyed the super regional format. I got to be in Ann Arbor. What a special environment. That's as fun of a college tennis match as I've ever been to at the University of Michigan from an environment standpoint. And to present that opportunity, I just think is immeasurably valuable to college tennis. That's the sort of match you go to as a 6-year-old and you just want to play tennis all the time and you want to keep going back. And again, there were people sitting on the hill at the Varsity Tennis Center, which may not mean anything to people listening to this. That never happens. And
Well, they
it was
never
just,
play outside.
oh, Dianu, my friend. But yeah, fair point. But yeah, I mean, again, I still think it's too early to say. Give me 5 years of sample size before I make any conclusions about the play. And I don't think 5 years is too long of a sample size to try and do this for. That said, I mean, look, Texas A&M 4-0 victory over Vanderbilt. And look, they'd already beaten them throughout the course of the season. They had played not that long before this match at the NCAA SEC tournament. But for this Texas A&M team, another doubles point for them. They don't drop doubles points ever. They also, for them, the massive victories against Stoyana, Goldsmith drop a combined 6 games in their loss, and then Branstein gets the victory at the number 1 spot, which is where Vanderbilt has been most vulnerable all season long. Now, right now they're playing Morales instead of Townsend at that number 6 spot, and Morales drops her first set against Amy Stevens. Kirkina Pilette in the 3rd set when the match finishes, although Kirkina's been as good as any player in the country at that number 5 spot. So I actually think that's a pretty good result for Pilette. And I mean, Makarova may not have won, but she's up a set in 3-4 when the match finishes. This is what A&M has done to teams. Like, again, A&M has the highest. A&M's the TCU of the women's draw, if that makes sense, where their floor to me is as high as any team in the country. They don't play a bad match. It just doesn't happen. And they're going to get to 3 points. Makarova's going to win one. They're probably going to win doubles, and they're going to find at least one more singles victory. Now, the question is, what's their ceiling? And all season long, it's been hard to know because they're the only SEC team in the final 8. And, as Florida, Auburn, Vanderbilt may have all gotten there, but they all lost fairly comfortable matches in those scenarios. You're more than welcome to open up the floor here on the SEC, but final thoughts here on this Texas A&M team heading into the quarters.
Yeah, I mean it's been a great season for them. They have a pretty clear calculus. Doubles and their top 4, right? They're going to get 3 of those top 4. You probably feel like in every single match. That's been the calculus through the SEC tournament. That's been the calculus in the NCAA tournament. So I'm excited to see this Oklahoma match. I'm excited to preview that. And it's another opportunity for Texas A&M to get their first top 10 win of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And then with that in mind, UNC, of course, 4-0 over Florida. Big for Cam Mora just to get that second set over McCartney Kessler, even if that match doesn't finish. Good win for Scotty in straight sets. Yarlagata looking the part again, 0-2 at that number 6 spot. And then, Crawley gonna Crawley as she gets the straight set victory at number 4. Again, final thoughts on the SEC, final thoughts on this Sweet 16 weekend.
Well, I'll just say I have no notes for North Carolina. I thought they looked solid. They've been playing really well. I actually think North Carolina is that has the highest floor of these teams. I think that gauntlet of 3, 4, 5 is going to be really tough for most teams to crack. It's just a question.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
No, I'm just messing with you.
6 has been cracked a few times, but
that's a callback to a debate we had early in the season. For those of you who can stick with us that long.
But yeah, I mean, North Carolina looks great. I mean, look, what a phenomenal match we're going to get in the quarterfinals. So, in terms of the SEC, definitely a step forward for them, right? Last season, I forget the stats, but didn't have a ton of teams make the round of 16. They have more teams this year. So that's a good step forward for them as they try and kind of, get back in the conversation of one of the top conferences in the country.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, with that said, let's look at the matches we still have left here in the 2022 college tennis season. NCAA quarterfinals beginning Friday. Again, it's 3 consecutive days for the women this season. We don't have to have that debate again, Jay, I promise, here on today's show. But let's start. I'm going to let you pick because, honest to God, when I look at these and I think which is the most intriguing, with all due respect, it's not NC State Duke because I've seen that matchup before, and that's an exceptional matchup. But from an intrigue factor, I mean, man, like Stearns Navarro means Texas Virginia has to be in the conversation. I mean, Oklahoma short Shanta versus a Texas A&M team that doesn't play top 10 matches this year has to be in the conversation. And then the other one's UNC fucking Pepperdine. Like, how is that not the conversation? So I'm going to let you pick. Which of these is your most interesting quarterfinal? That's where we'll start.
I mean, it has to be North Carolina Pepperdine, right? Like the narrative of last season, Pepperdine stopping all sorts of North Carolina streaks. This one's going to be spicy, and I'm looking forward to it. So we got to start there.
So let's go then with the match calculus, and I will start with the top seed for North Carolina. Number 1 seed in North Carolina, 27-2 overall on the season. I mean, obviously the numbers are going to be ridiculous everywhere, but in particular, 24-0 at that number 5 single spot. Tarson Tangillig, the freshman, 13-0 at the number 5 position. Now, Fiona Crawley did lose a match this season, but she's still 15-1 overall on the year. Has dropped just 1 dual match in her career, and they're 25-2 there. And then to your point, 20-3 at the number 3 spot. Riley Tran, 11-2 at that number 3 spot, though she was down in their round of 16 match to Alicia Dudney. You also look for this team. They're 53-18 in individual double sets on the year. Crawley and Scotty, a top 3 team in the country. Of late, it's been Sanford and Tangillig, who are 4-1 at that number 2 spot, and then the two-handed combo Tran Mora, 2-2 at that 3 spot. What are give me your 4 most confident points for North Carolina. Let's start there.
So I can kind of make this match calculus easy. The winner of the doubles point wins this match.
Well, that's no fun. So that's, again, give me.
I'll give you the rest, but I think like that's the first thing to say, right? We all saw that doubles point in the semifinals. It determined the outcome of that match. So doubles couldn't be more important here. I think both of these teams, if they were playing anyone else, you think, okay, I think they can get 4 points. In singles, I think that's gonna be really hard. So I'm assuming take the doubles point. If I'm North Carolina, first and foremost, I got to get Crawley at 4. Crawley over Pachkalev is a must for them. The next point I think needs to come from Scotty over Fukuda. This is a rematch over last year's semifinal. Fukuda won that match. I think Scotty needs to hit through Fukuda, take that match. And then I think it needs to come down between either Cam Mora at 1 over Janice Chen or Yarlagata over Flores. I would probably lean Yarlagata over Flores based on form, right? This is not Vicky Flores.
How good is Tangillig Brodus, though? I mean, Tangillig hasn't lost a 5 singles match. Brodus has lost, they both lost 1 match as freshmen. Tangillig's lost 2, excuse me, but 3 combined losses for the 2 freshmen. Like, oh my God, is that match good?
Yeah, I'll be camped out there for a lot of it. But yeah, and that's why I can't really lean North Carolina there just because of how good Savannah Brodus has looked. Tangillig is excellent. That match has future of college tennis written all over it.
Do we agree? Because we're both going to be there after every doubles point. You and I'll do however long Twitter allows a video to be messages on Twitter, and that'll be our instant content for all the fans. We'll post that on the Cracked Rackets Twitter feed. You agree to do it with me?
What videos are we doing?
Well, I'll just like hold my phone up and I'll say Alex Gruskin, John J.
Okay.
Parsons. Here's our take. Who's got the momentum right now? I think we should be doing stuff like that throughout the course of the tournament. If you're interested, throw it in the YouTube comment feed or tweet at us at Cracked Rackets.
Yeah. Tell us what you want to see in Champaign. We have our phones.
We'll have our recap podcast as well. Let me tell you. I mean, so you're saying the match calculus for North Carolina is doubles, 2, 4, and most likely 6.
I think that's what you got to go.
Is it pretty straightforward? 1, 3, 5. Then that means for the waves.
In my opinion,
it sounds like this. So 1, 3, 5. That's in your opinion, yes.
I think so.
And so with that in mind, then what's the inflection point match? What's the one that's swinging? This is the one where I'm most unsure. And I think the winner of this obviously the doubles point is number 1 inflection point. But of the 6 singles matches, it's 3-all. It's coming down to this. What flight is that?
Well, it's probably 6.
Okay.
Right. It's probably Yarlagadova Flores. That
and
feels
it's honestly
like
just because of the playing speed of Vicky Flores. But yes, keep going.
Yes. But also like if Pepperdine takes 6 and doubles and North Carolina needs to find 5 of the top 4 of the top 5, that's tough. So for me, it's 6. I think if Pepperdine takes doubles in 6, they're feeling really good.
And if North Carolina takes doubles in 6, same deal.
I feel a little less confident in North Carolina if they take doubles in 6, but
so for them, is it doubles in 5? Is it's like if Tangillig is as good as she continues?
Exactly.
Is that the inflection point?
Exactly. If Tangillig knocks off Brodus, you're feeling real good.
All right, I like that. No, okay. And by the way, we're getting some people. It's Kevin Laracy, Scotty B. One, I'm not even going to try and say his name, but it starts with a 1 and it ends with an 8, which means he's of age. We will do those videos then. If you guys are in favor, happy to do those updates for you. You'll find them on Cracked Rackets throughout the course of the tournament. All right. We've talked inflection points. We've talked matchups. Most intriguing match. You said you're camped on 5?
Yeah, it got to be Tangillig Brodus.
Man. I mean, I wish it was Zara Crawley, because that's my sort of match from like just a physicality standpoint and how the grind of that match would be. I mean, Fukuda, Scotty, two emotional leaders of their teams this season. Give me your prediction. I'm abstaining, as listeners know, as I have to be on the call here.
So you're not on the call for this, so I don't know why
I'm abstaining from the round, though, because I don't want anyone thinking I'm playing fair. They'll be like, oh, because I made you look bad in the quarterfinals. I'm like, no, I just stopped making picks.
Okay, just noting that if the ESPN commentators can go on the record, I think we could go on the record a few times.
Kirk Herbstreit doesn't, because he's on the call for the game.
Okay, that's a football thing. We're talking tennis.
Football standards here. Football standards. It's college.
Got it. Okay, so
if it was pros, let me be clear. If it was pros, I would not care. It's because I actually like these college teams and players. And so I'm like, how am I going to pick someone in this match? I've known Pete Billingham since I was 17 years old, and I got invited to the North Carolina banquet, albeit accidentally. But I can't make a pick here, so I'll let you.
It's the poison pill you got to take. Gruskin.
I hate this match so much.
I'm going Pepperdine 4-2.
Wow. Now we're talking, Jay. Hello.
Look, this match is going to be extremely close, and I do think the winner of the doubles point wins this match. I got to go with Pepperdine. They have the belief that they can beat this North Carolina team at this stage. They did it last year. They have more momentum on their side over the last few weeks, and I think they get doubles 1, 3, and 5.
Yeah. All right. That's a prediction for all of you listeners. Jay's going Pepperdine 4-2. Obviously fired in the chat right now. Scotty B says North Carolina 4-3. Would love to hear anyone who's watching live what you guys think for your predictions as well. And we'll send out the polls beforehand as well to see what the public is feeling.
And you can read more of the explanations for that on the Cracked Rackets website.
And that's why he's your co-favorite writer, folks. All right. With that in mind, that match, 4 p.m. Eastern time, Friday, May 20th. What I learned from the men's preview is that it's the top half of the draw playing first and the bottom half playing second. They're not playing left and right sides at the same time. We're not doing that, Jay. We're holding our tongue. We're holding our tongue because we just don't, again, we've been talking long enough here.
But sorry, I think you're wrong, though.
Oh, Did they do it differently on the women's side? That was just for the men's?
Yeah. So the
Oh,
men
that's
are doing
fantastic news. That's
wait,
fantastic.
but the men are doing like one from the top half and one from the bottom half,
Yeah, are
right?
at different hours. Yeah, which is the dumbest thing in the world because why wouldn't you just have the two quarterfinalists play at the same time? It's relatively equal amounts of rest. See, you don't you can hold your tongue. I got you.
I was gonna say you
No,
said it, not me.
yeah,
But the
no,
women are different. The women are doing
which
like
makes sense because they have to play 3 days in a row. So the women, oh, are the women 1, 2, 3, 4?
no, I wish the women
No,
are
yeah,
like
yeah, it's
both
four
top
and
half, both bottom half.
wait, what? Walk me through that again. Both top. You mean both
So
left,
like
both right? Like the
sure,
like North Carolina and
Line-
Pepperdine play at the
play
same
at the
time as
same time.
Texas and Virginia.
Exactly.
Leave
Which is
all of that in, Westoff. Again, this is you got to do it for the show. That is how you should do it. And that makes the most sense, particularly because all of these teams have to play the next day. I know what you're saying. That's not how you should do it. But I'm saying in this format, that's how you have
in
to
this
do it.
format, you should do that. I don't know why we're doing men and women different, but
Yeah. Well,
anyways.
yeah. I mean, Dianu, as we say in my culture. All right, let's move then to the other 4 p.m. Eastern time match, Friday, May 20th. Of course, that match is your other left side of the draw, Texas taking on Virginia. This is spicy. Texas 23-4 overall in the year. Virginia 23-5. These two teams did not play during the course of the regular season. Let's start with the higher seeded Texas team, who of course again has not lost since their regular season loss to Oklahoma. They, just have been exceptional everywhere. But it starts with the number one player. Their number one singles player, Peyton Stearns, 22-1 overall in the year. She's won 14 in a row. I mean, obviously, the match calculus starts with Stearns. As I said, Texas feels like they're going into every match up 1-0. Now, obviously, it's different when you're facing Emma Navarro and Virginia. So, with that in mind, what's your Texas match calculus? Does it include Stearns?
I'll put it this way. I think Texas doesn't need Stearns as badly as Virginia needs Navarro. And I don't think Texas needs Stearns to win this match. I think again, I think they'll need to take doubles. So I'll say they need to take doubles. I think 3 and 4 are very strong points for Texas against this Virginia squad. So that'd be 3 Zainalova, 4 Shabatapan, and then for me it comes down to a split of 5 or 6. I think this is a little bit of the more unknown territory with Zamarip at 5, of Rutsky at 6, both freshmen. I think if Texas splits those bottom two, they win this match.
So the big thing for this matchup, you talk about the doubles point. Texas 43-20 overall in doubles on the year. That's a 683 win percentage. Virginia's 52-22, 703. And again, that's in the ACC, which all due respect to the Big 12, who had plenty of strength this year, we just waxed poetically at the start of the show about how great the ACC was. And, again, Stearns at that number one double spot has been playing really well down the home stretch with Zamarripa. They're 10-2 overall, 5-2 at that one spot. But I'll take Navarro and Shake at that number one spot, who are 11-5 overall, number 4 in the country. But again, ACC schedule. Both teams are really good at the number 2 spot. Texas 18-3, Virginia 20-5. That's just a really fun battle at 2. And then both teams are shaky at 3. And so it's toss-ups in all 3 doubles flights. Like, there is no definitive favorite, in my opinion. And honestly, this matchup may straight up just come down to who plays better on a given day. Is it Navarro? Is it Stearns? The one that does, if you can sweep both of those spots, one doubles, one singles for either team, you're probably winning this match. Like, honest to God, because if you're Virginia, who's taken doubles against some very good teams throughout the course of this season, you take doubles, you take Navarro, you feel like you can find 2 of the other 5.
Yeah, I mean, just to switch gears on the Virginia side, I think it's a must. I think they have to win doubles. They have to win, Navarro over Stearns. They've never won when Emma Navarro has lost.
Yeah.
So that's a must.
Which, by the way, has only happened twice.
But still, fun stat for you. Speaking of twice, Texas is 0-2 all time against Virginia. Virginia is 0-2 in the NCAA quarterfinals. One of those records changes on Friday.
See, this is why we love you, Jay. And by the way, you can read more stats like that on our Cracked Racquets website, as Jay previewed all of these quarterfinals. Go on, my friend.
But look, I think those are musts for Virginia. And I think you're right. I think they do feel good about finding 2 more from 2 through 6. But again, if the Texas calculus for me does include doubles, It includes 3, it includes 4, and it includes a split at 5 or 6. Obviously, yeah, they can win at 1 and 2 as well. But if we're talking like 4 most likely points, I just think you can't bank on Peyton Stearns winning this match.
All right. With that in mind, then give me the match calculus in the end you see unfolding. What's your prediction for this one?
Yeah, I think this is a 4-3 match. I think Texas takes it 4-3. I will say, like, if there's any justice in the world, this match should come down to Emma Navarro versus Peyton Stearns, your number 1 and number 2 players in the country who are at a level above the rest of the field. But I got to lean Texas, given their experience at this stage, that core of Stearns, Collins, Shavathapan. I do think they take doubles 3-4 and then split 5 or 6.
I just think we're going to see splits everywhere. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I know this is so stupid. I don't think either team's capable of winning 4 singles matches. And so I do think it's going to come down to the doubles point. I know how simple that may be. Scotty B's taken Virginia 4-3. QH has taken Texas 4-1. I'm not making picks. So that's what we call teas in our business. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think more than anything, and you said it at the start, pick 4-3, right? Like that's what you're picking in this match, that this will absolutely be a battle. Speaking of battles, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, 8 p.m. Eastern time on Friday. The Sooners 30-2 overall in the year. Their only loss is up, doubles and 4 first sets against North Carolina in the national indoors and against a Texas team who they had already beaten 2 times during the course of the season. Meanwhile, for A&M, they haven't lost since the round of 16 at the national indoors. Lost a 4-3 match to Cal, which they will argue to the end of time they probably should have and arguably maybe did win in their minds. And they haven't lost since. Run through the SEC undefeated. Get Vanderbilt in the Sweet 16, 4-0 them, routine fashion, and to beat a team 3 times in 1 year, extremely difficult to do. When the third one's 4-0, you just know they're better than you. I mean, look, this A&M team has no vulnerabilities from a statistical standpoint. Yeah, 5 singles, they're 19-8. 6 singles, they're 20-8. But those aren't vulnerabilities. This team hasn't dropped the doubles point. 31-0 at the 2 spot, 29-2 at 3, 27-3 at 4. And of course, we know Carson Branstein, 17-7 at the number 1 spot. Her power tennis capable of hitting through anyone on any given day. I mean, look, Oklahoma's played 4-3 matches. They've won their 4-3 matches. We know what we're getting, a battle up and down the lineup everywhere, battle in doubles as well. I don't even know if there is a match calculus, Jay. I don't have a question for you here or a direction. Take this match anywhere you want to go. What are you looking forward to the most?
Well, I think first and foremost, I'm just curious to see the energy from Texas A&M. I think this is a team that is extremely hungry to be here and prove that they belong on this national stage. And I'm expecting a dominant doubles performance. I'm expecting them to come out and take a very quick doubles point against Oklahoma, who has been solid throughout the year in doubles. I think without Shanta, it hurts. Losing that doubles point to Arizona State. I think this is one of the matches where Oklahoma's calculus probably doesn't include doubles. And I think that's okay because I think Oklahoma is an overwhelming favorite at 5 and 6. You talk about no vulnerabilities on this Texas A&M team. I do not think that is the case. They have been hard pressed to find victories from 5 and 6 in the postseason. And I think those are 2 spots with Pisareva and Staker that Oklahoma feels excellent about. So I think those are 2 points for Oklahoma. I think then becomes the challenging part, right? Where does Texas A&M find their 3 of 4 single spots from 1 through 4? I think you probably lean Makarova at 2 for Texas A&M. And I think this comes down, and I think you probably lean Goldsmith over Guzman. Guzman can beat Goldsmith, but Goldsmith hasn't
Just
lost
match
since.
toughness, yeah.
She hasn't,
And yeah, I mean,
yeah,
match like experience to this point, just through the season. Like she's just played. Jason
exactly.
Goldsmith's played so many matches this year, and
Yeah.
to your
And she
point, she's
hasn't
filled in
lost.
25-2 overall,
Yeah.
21-2 at that number 4 spot.
Yeah. And both of those losses were indoors, I believe.
Yeah, the lefty's just been a rock.
Yeah, exactly. So you're at 3-2, and then you go to Sleeth beat Brandstein, and what does Ivana Corley do at number 3? I just can't bet against this Oklahoma team. I've seen them find ways to win at all sorts of positions the entire year. I think it's a 4-3 match. I think probably comes down to Sleeth and Brandstein at number 1.
Yeah, and look, Brandstein, Sleeth, that's a fun contrast of style because
Huge.
obviously
Yeah.
Sleeth going to grind.
Yep.
Brandstein going to have opportunities to play +1 tennis, be aggressive with her forehand. God, was that video from the Texas A&M social crew of the Titanic music with her celebrating the match point. That is literally up my alley. I almost think that was for me, and so always appreciate the directed content for a mind of the generation. I mean, yeah, 4-3 would be the pick again. I said it in Pepperdine, UNC. I'd say it here. I said it in our last match as well. All three of these matches, four of them, beyond anything else, I'd pick 4-3. Thankfully, I don't have to make a pick. So who are you going with? Sleeth, Brandstein in the end. That's what it sounds like. That's your inflection point.
Well, the inflection point really is Ivana Corley, right?
Okay.
And she's playing freshman Stoyana.
Yeah.
Based on what I saw, if she continues that level of play, given this stage, I think she takes that match. Ultimately,
And just a reminder, Champaign was extraordinarily kind to the A&M Aggies in 2013 as they made the final of the women's event.
it absolutely was. I just have to go with the Sooners. It's hard to bet against them, seeing what we've seen all season. Look, Texas A&M could come out there and win 4-0 and prove that they are truly the best team in the country. But with what I've seen so far, this Oklahoma team just feels too resilient.
It sounds really stupid. I do feel like Texas is the team more likely to win 4-0 than Oklahoma to beat Texas A&M 4-0. Like in the weirdest scenario, if that makes sense at all. Like there's a world where maybe Texas A&M really is just ridiculously good, and like
Totally. Yeah,
yeah,
totally. And I totally can see that.
but that's no one 4-0 Oklahoma, 4-0's Oklahoma. That's why that's not happening. And yeah, more than anything else, I'm picking 4-3. Thankfully, I don't have to pick a team actually to win. All right, last matchup is a rematch of the ACC regular season, a matchup that was won by the Duke women. Duke women ultimately a 4-3 victory over NC State earlier in the season in Raleigh. NC State, as they so frequently do, won the doubles point in that match, but ultimately it was Drummy, it was Beck, it was Billiken, and it was Coleman earning the 4 singles victories that the team needed. Duke in particular, 2-7-6 in the third victories at the 2 and 5 spots to clinch this match. They skated by the skin of their teeth. Again, talk about a toss-up. You want to say pick 4-3 more than anything else. Literally came down to 2-7-6 in the third matchups in a 4-3 decision for the Blue Devils. This NC State team has been they went to the NCAA semifinals last year. Of course, this Duke core, Drummy, Beck, Billiken, Chen, they've been around the block as well. I mean, again, Jay, where do we even start here? Like I said it last time, for Duke, it was 1, 2, 4, and 5. Is the recipe the same? Like, what do you look at for the Blue Devils here?
Yeah, so you brought it up, right? When they played, that match could not have been closer, right? 4 3-set matches, two of them 7-6 in the third. The clincher was 6-4 in the third. Ridiculously close. Of note, Duke was without Emma Jackson at number 3. So that changes things. When I look at this, I think NC State takes doubles, right? They're up there with Texas A&M with one of the best doubles point in the country, have number one team in the country. They've only dropped 3 doubles points. So I do think they take doubles. I think Duke's path includes having to take 4 singles. I think if I'm Duke, it's pretty straightforward. I need 1 with Chloe Beck over Jada Daniel. I need Georgia Drummy at number 2 over Renchali. And then I need Kelly Chen at 4 over Nell Miller. In terms of where you find your 4th, if you're Duke, it could come anywhere, right? From those, from any. Oh, you actually don't. No, you need a 4th. It could come anywhere. I like NC State in this matchup, though. I have liked what I've seen from the tournament so far. I think they take dubs, and I think they get Negroho at 3 over Emma Jackson. And I think they get 5 and 6 over Billiken and Ellie Coleman. I thought Rejecki and Abrams have looked super solid. I don't know if this is going to be a close 4-3 match. I think NC State has the calculus to knock this one out.
Interesting. I mean, again, for this Duke or for the matchups, NC State 17 and 11 at 1. You look for this Duke team 14 and 9 at that number 1 spot. Feels like a toss up, Again, number 2 for NC State, they're 21 and 7 overall there. Now Duke 23 and 0 at the number 2 single spot. You feel like that's one they got to have.
Yep.
Certainly in the match
It'll be
calculus.
a big hitting match between Drummy and Vinciali.
Exactly. Everywhere else, though, again, strength versus strength or weakness versus weakness. Like
Yep,
NC State
exactly.
19-7 at 4, Duke 15-5 at 4, Duke 11-10 at 3, NC State 17-6 with Priska Negroho at 3. Splits across the board. Like it really does feel like, again, is Duke going to be able to take 2 7-6 in the third matches as they needed to do on the road at NC State? Again, that's a tough thing to ask. At the same time, this Duke team is even better now and even more confident now than they were in taking that 4-3 win at NC State at the end of the regular season. This match is going to be so good. They're all going to be so good. With that in mind, you, again, give me your prediction. Who you rolling with?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny you mentioned, I mean, this first match we talked about when they played super close, that was the season inflection point for Duke, right? Yeah. They had just come off
turning point for
exactly.
Sure.
They had come off that Florida swing, and they got this huge win. I'm leaning NC State. I am going to go 4-3. I think the calculus for NC State is doubles Priska Negroho at 3 over Emma Jackson, and then 5 and 6 Rajecki and Abrams.
I'll order your predictions in order of confidence, because there's absolutely a world where you go 4-0. There's absolutely a world where you go 0-4. So give me, in terms of the picks you made, order of confidence from 1 to 4, most to least.
I would go doubles number 1.
No. Sorry. Of your 4 picks in terms of the 4 quarterfinals, because I do feel like, again, you could be right on all of your quarterfinal picks. I feel like this is one of those years actually where you could be wrong about all of them as well. And usually there's like one quarterfinal where you feel like, okay, like, I know Duke pushed UNC last year, but you just felt like that that team had owned Duke, and like they were going to get through for sure.
Or how about Texas, that Texas, Florida State?
FSU. Yeah, you're just like, Texas is getting in for sure. I don't think you can say that about this year's 4 matchups. And so with that in mind, rank me confidence order of your picks, most to least confident of who advances.
This is a really tough question.
See, that's the laugh, by the way, I expected when I asked the question, and I was a little offended. Now I just understand you didn't get it.
Yeah.
And that's me, by the way. That's a word salad.
Wow.
It's really hard.
Oh my gosh. Give me Oklahoma over A&M. Wow. Most confident. Texas over Virginia.
Okay.
NC State over Duke, and then Pepperdine over North Carolina.
That's just amazing. That's just, again, that speaks to the quality of these NCAA quarterfinals. Again, 4 o'clock. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was saying, it's truly all within like 55-45, right? Yeah. There's no match that is like outside of those odds.
No, this is, again, as good as it gets. And with that in mind, action again, 4 p.m. Eastern time, Tennis One app on Friday. It's going to be UNC Pepperdine, Texas versus Virginia to start. Then 8 p.m. Eastern time, NC State Duke. Oklahoma taking on Texas A&M. Of course, I am looking forward to being on the broadcast coverage for the semifinals onward, for the team event, even more for the individuals. All that action again on the Tennis One app. With that said, we're less than 72 hours away from the start of the men's, less than 48 hours from the start of the men's event, 72 hours for the women's event. With that in mind, Jay, any final thoughts before we wrap our final pre-NCAA tournament NCAA tournament involved deciding point of the season?
Just one bone to pick.
Okay.
From the Cracked Interviews podcast. Talk a lot about those 9 a.m. matches or those 9 p.m. matches at the round of 16. Parents and you. Come on.
Didn't I say that in at least one of them? I had to have thrown you in there in at least one of them.
I didn't hear it, but I think you need a few more NCAA trips in your cap before you really say that you were out there. And plus, you weren't there before we moved to the no-ad 6-game set. I mean, Bobby Knight and I were out there at 2, 3 a.m. So you got a little ways to go, Gruskin.
Can I give a counterpoint? I was 11 when you guys were out there. So 20, you see what I did there? Just, you guys should see Jay's face. I mean, some of you are watching live right now, but to the podcast listeners, that was just a little hoots dig for you there. But again, we're going to have podcasts on site. We'll talk hopefully with coaches during the tournament. We'll obviously have the chance to speak with Jay, hopefully Chris, Colette Lewis, the entire cast of characters as we all descend upon Champaign for the final weeks of the 2022 college tennis season. Of course, a massive shout out to all of you who've stuck with us throughout the course of this season. It's been a year of firsts for us here at Cracked Racquets, and it's only going to get better from our college tennis content perspective moving forward. So thank you to all of you for sticking with us. Thank you to our friends at SwingVision and Turner. Learn more about the SwingVision app by clicking on the link in the description to this podcast. Contact our friends at Turner by emailing sales@uniquesports.com today. A shout out, as always, to our super producer, Daniel Westoff. We started our first show at 7, 3 hours, 15 minutes later. We have officially previewed both men's and women's NCAA quarterfinal draws. With all of that said, final word goes to you, Jay. You excited for Champaign?
I'm looking forward to it. You know, this is my 12th NCAA, I think. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I always look forward to it. I say this is my European vacation. This is my thing that I look forward to all season long. So I can't wait. If people are in Champaign, looking forward to meet you, talk with people. We're all amongst our people here, so I'm looking forward to it.
So next year's your 13th, your NCAA mitzvah. Interesting. We'll have to do something fun for that in 2023, and we'll have time to plan. But for now, for the fantastic John J. Parsons, our super producer Daniel Westoff, our friends at SwingVision and Turner, and from all of us here at both Cracked Racquets and the Tennis Channel Podcast Network, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. Jay, what do we tell our listeners?
Hey, great shot.
And we will see you all throughout the course of the week. Thanks, everyone.